You got your mama's sunshine, you got your daddy's rain. You're like a piece of heaven in a hurricane. And it's bubbling.
Hey everybody, welcome to this week's podcast. I am Josh. This is Off the Mountain. So I'm going to introduce today's podcast. We're going to replay one of the older podcasts that we did. In fact, it was the 5th podcast that we did. It's called Fear, the Good and the Bad. Very good podcast. Very applicable to the day, right? It's Halloween. It's October 31st. And we want to encourage you to listen to that. But we also want to encourage you guys to get out in your neighborhood tonight. We're doing this campaign with our church where we handed out yard signs this year that says light up the night. And we really talked amongst ourselves in our staff meetings. And we kind of planned this as an opportunity to be in our neighborhoods. It reminds me of a story where Jesus is walking into a little town called Caesarea Philippi. And in Caesarea Philippi, there's a lot of pagan sacrifices. It was kind of an evil place. It was a place where people were into stuff that many of us would consider very evil and very bad. But Jesus took his disciples there, and this is exactly where he told Peter that Peter is the rock that he would build his church upon. And he tells Peter, he says, the gates of Hades will not be able to overcome it. And in this place, in Caesarea Philippi, there was this big hole, this big watering hole, dark cave. And that dark cave was known as the gates of Hades, the gates to the underworld. And Jesus was walking in this darkness with his disciples, and he was being a light, and he was being a witness amongst people that were in a different kind of dark mode. And so tonight, your neighborhood may seem a little weird. It may seem a little dark, but you have an opportunity to be a light. You have an opportunity to be that house where people can come to and see something different. And so we want to encourage you guys to do that tonight, to enjoy your neighborhood. We also want to encourage you guys to have a great week. Next week, we're going to be back with a brand new episode. We've had vacations happening the last couple of weeks, but next week we're going to be back at it as the crew, myself, Pastor Tom Touchstone, Pastor Ron Vietti, and Vincent Sierra, and we're going to have a lot of fun. So enjoy this episode and enjoy this week. We're going to talk about fear today. We're going to talk about, what is it that you fear, that you're afraid of, and is there a good side to fear? And so I think it's going to be a fun conversation. Let's go.
I have nothing to say because I don't know anybody that has any fears.
Yeah.
Right?
Right.
You know anybody that has any fears?
Not at this table.
Right. Insert crickets there.
Yeah.
Well, we say the old brand. What was it? No fear?
Yeah, exactly. You know what's funny about fear, though, is men will never say that they have fear. They'll say they're stressed.
Interesting.
You know what I mean? It's like men usually say, I'm stressed out right
Or
now.
I'm apprehensive about that.
Or I just don't know. I'm.
But is there a difference of fear and stress?
I think there is, but I think that in my opinion, a lot of issues that we have mentally are birthed in fear. Here's an interesting way to start the topic. There are only 2 fears that are innate inside of us that you're born with. The 2 fears are the fear of heights, fear of falling, and fear of loud noises. Everything else from there is learned.
That's crazy. I thought fear of heights would be in there because I have that one. That is one of my big fears.
Well, it's funny because you see dogs, right? Animals naturally, they fear, they walk up to the edge of a cliff. They don't jump off, right? They understand that that's not a good thing. They have that too. If you make a loud noise in the forest, there's deer out here today, and if you make a loud noise, they take off running, right? But they're not afraid of their taxes. You know?
I didn't know that. I thought the fear of heights in me was because inevitably, at some time when I was little, I fell off of something high or whatever.
Well, it can exasperate
I could have been born with it.
Yeah, I mean, obviously our experiences exasperate everything. But it's how you process. It's what you're exposed to. All that stuff.
What is the number one fear? Do you guys know? What's the number one fear in life?
I would assume it's speaking.
Public speaking. I've
Public
heard.
speaking. Yeah, I don't really know. I haven't looked it up recently. They change over the years.
Jim, what's your fear?
And the number 2 is death.
Death.
Right?
Death.
So
Yeah,
so
death is
people-
definitely on the list.
So people would rather die than to speak in public.
Is that crazy? I don't know. I don't think I'm afraid to die.
What about dying while you're speaking in public?
Wow.
That would be like a
What's the
uber
old
fear.
saying that I'm not afraid to die? I just don't want to be there when it happens.
Right. Makes sense.
But you know what? I wrote down some things. Fears, and somebody said one of the number one fears is social anxiety or social phobia. Social phobia, which includes speaking in public, going to a party because you're afraid that you're going to be judged.
Right.
What is? Let's go back. If the number one fear is speaking in public speaking, what are some of the mechanics of that? I mean, why are we really afraid of that? Is it that we think our peers or the people there are going to judge us? Is that it?
It's going to probably come down to when you have to be in front of people, you don't want to say the wrong thing. You don't want to have to be held accountable to the things that you're saying, right? Like if you say something in front of a bunch of people, now you have accountability to the things that you're saying. And then I just think it also just comes down to, like you said, just simple things. How do I look? Did I dress right? Did I wear the right shoes? You know, I mean, it can go so far down that rabbit hole, but yeah, I think it's going to come down.
So I just
to
pulled up. I pulled up the
that.
list. You'd think we would have had this before we started.
I have a
but
list.
I do
I
have
was
a
just
list,
waiting.
too.
Yeah,
You're
we're
the
ready
only
for
one
you,
that
but go
doesn't.
ahead.
I'm the only one that doesn't. Okay,
I don't
so
have it either.
My list
Okay.
is from Chapman.
Okay.
Because Chapman does this every year. The number one is corrupt government officials.
That's number one?
It's number one.
That's
No
the-
way. No way.
The number one fear?
number one.
No
Number
way.
two is people I love dying.
Okay.
That's up there.
Number three, a loved one contracting coronavirus.
When was this written, dude?
This is
I
20.
know.
This is 2020, 2021. This is the last couple of years. Number four, people I love becoming seriously ill. Number five, widespread civil unrest. Number six, a pandemic or major epidemic. Number seven, economical or financial collapse. Number eight, cyber terrorism.
And whose grandma wrote this?
What
This-
person in a closet?
This definitely came out summer of 2020.
Number nine,
right
hold
before
on.
COVID.
Number nine, pollution of oceans, rivers, and lakes.
That's
Okay.
just not right.
Yeah.
And number 10, biological
Well,
warfare.
listen to mine is social phobia, which includes speaking,
Yep.
public speaking, and then heights.
Yep.
And then snakes, bugs, and spiders.
Yep.
And then closed spaces, then flying. 49% of the people are afraid of flying. Jim, are you afraid of flying?
I used to be.
Well, it goes along with heights too.
I think we were with you the first time I flew.
Yes, you were. And you were very nervous.
Yes. I prayed a lot.
Then they have fear of
Yep.
of darkness, fear of disease, fear of death, fear of blood. I don't have fear of blood unless it's mine.
Again, I think that goes back to the death. A lot of these can be related to, it's like, if you see blood, am I going to survive? One of our video guys who's behind camera, Tyler, he sees a drop of blood on his, he starts Google searching all kinds of stuff, and he's at the doctor the next day. So,
Well, real
you know.
quickly, look at this list. Let's go
camera's
down through
shaking
it.
'cause he's laughing
We
right
said social phobia.
right.
So that is public speaking.
Yep.
But the next one, heights, we already know about. What about snakes, bugs, and spiders?
Yeah, it depends. Depends on if you've been bit.
But you know why snakes, bugs, and spiders are the worst? Because they're hidden. It's like
the
things
most
that
part,
they're
yeah.
things that you don't see. Like if a snake, in general, if you see it, you're not afraid of it if you can see it going across the path. It's when you're walking in the woods and you don't want to step on a snake or a spider in the couch.
One of
those are
the most fearful moments I've had in my life. One of the most fearful moments was when I was living in Ventura and we had a raised foundation, and I had to crawl all the way under the foundation to the opposite side of the house and check something. And there was one entrance and one exit. It was, a couple feet. It was really
Right.
small. And just while I was down there, I was like, this is not natural. Like, I started thinking of earthquakes. I started thinking of snakes, spiders. I started thinking
being
of
stuck.
yeah, just getting stuck, or just so many different things that could happen. And so like that confined space, I think that would be
Yeah.
huge, But there's so many different fears, and the truth is that most fears are natural. Most fears are good to have.
Yeah,
because
logical.
They're logical. They protect you.
Right.
Right.
Survival.
Yeah, I mean, I want my kid to be afraid of the campfire when we go camping because I don't want her to fall in.
Yes.
And you know where that fear comes from is when she touched the pan the other day, she felt it. And so she knows that fire is hot, it burns, and so I'm glad that she has that. It's a respect. It's a healthy respect.
Fear motivates you.
Yeah.
It'll get you to doing things you wouldn't normally do that are some of those are good things.
Well, yeah, exactly. And like a fear of spiders, there's a healthy respect, but then
Right.
there's a phobia, right? And there's the dysfunction starts to happen when the phobia happens, right? So like the spiders, all of a sudden, you know, you're playing with them, you know, and that's dumb. That's stupid, right? That'd be the dumbest thing you could possibly do. But it's good to have a healthy respect. Say, okay, if I see a spider, I'm going to get a newspaper. I'm going to smash it, right? I'm going to take care of it. I'm going to do what I have to do. Sorry to those of you that are really big on protecting the spiders, but if I see one, it's...
But what about your daughter, Olive? She's not afraid of anything hardly as far as bugs, spiders.
My
Now,
girls-
do you have to instill a little fear in her because she might pick up the wrong spider someday?
So with the girls, and the little one's even worse. She'll grab anything. And so, yeah, we tell them, you know, black widows, don't touch those. They'll bite you. And we always tell them you'll have to go to the doctor. And that's what gets them. They're like, what?
Right.
You know?
So we have to utilize fear to our advantage.
Yeah, but then there's a point where you can go too far, where you can say there's spiders everywhere, you know, underneath every cushion, or they're underneath every chair.
Or if somebody comes in a room and sees a spider, they go out running and screaming.
Right. And then there's the whole boy who cried wolf syndrome, where you can tell people that there's something everywhere, or it's something, you know, there's the spiders all over this house. They're everywhere. And then you look and you don't see any spiders. So then all of a sudden you think there's no spiders. There's not any spiders.
It's when
anywhere.
the fear controls what you're doing is when it becomes dangerous.
It's called
or
a
harmful.
spirit of fear in the Bible.
Yeah.
Right.
Vince, do you teach your children? Did you teach them from a smaller age, younger age, to be afraid of strangers?
Oh, 100%. And it's funny because as you, and Jim, I'm sure you're going to have a lot to say to this. In the beginning, I was almost over the top, like, be afraid of this, be afraid of that. Don't do this, don't do that. I was paralyzing them in some sense where they were just learning fears that I didn't even instill because they're like, well, that's probably also bad. You know, there's a movie, Mama Said, right? Mama Said that's bad. And you start learning that the things that are actually good for you or things you're missing out on, you're paralyzed by the fear and you don't end up experiencing things because you're so paralyzed by that fear. So I got Huntington. It was funny. My oldest now, he's probably the most cautious of all my kids because he was my first. And he always looks out for the little ones. Like, I wouldn't do that. I'm like, let him do it. Let him run. Hun. It's going to be fine. But it's funny because he was taught to fear at an early age. And so definitely, like, you know, having that, I taught my kids, like, you know, from an early age, but there's a healthy version of it.
Yes.
Versus one that controls
Well,
you.
you know, and I want to come back to what you said. It paralyzes your children with fear, but you could use fear to your advantage too. I've used it a lot. We go out to eat, and you guys know this by experience. And I'll tell you why everything good on your plate's going to cause cancer. And then when you don't eat it, I ask for it, and I'll eat it.
It's to your advantage, right?
And so I use it to my advantage. If you have something on your plate I really would like, I can scare you from eating it so I can have it.
Fear can, and that's true. I love that point that you bring up because fear can also be used to manipulate people. It can. I mean, fear, think about it. If you don't want somebody to do a specific thing, don't do this because this will happen. I remember when I was younger, and this is a great story. I love this because you guys were all involved in this. I was working for the city and I had a good city job. I was marking up, and my parents, I told my parents I'm going to quit my job and I'm going to go work at the church. And they're like, that's crazy. Like, you can't do that. Like, you have a good thing going over here. You know, don't mess that up, you know, because if you take this risk, and they wanted to instill all this fear in me about if I did this, this would happen. And obviously I had God and I was following God, and I was like, you know, if God's with me, even if this is a mistake, I will come out the other end of it. And obviously I did come out the other end of it, but my parents and then they thought they knew what was doing best. It wasn't a knock on them to say like, hey, they didn't have my best interest in mind. But if I let that fear stop me from doing what I was supposed to do, I wouldn't be the person.
Well, you were fearless when you were doing it too, because you guys don't know this story. Vince, when he was driving over, he would drive over to Vegas every week in his little S10 pickup, and it broke down in Baker. And he had to stay in one of those hotels in Baker.
Oh, no.
I did. I paid like $20 at the time. And I remember the room, and I just all night, I'm like, oh Lord, please let me not. And then one time, I don't even know if you know the story. I got so tired, I had to sleep at a truck stop. So in my little S10, I had my feet out the window at a truck, which is both windows down. I mean, I would be mortified to think that my kids slept at a truck stop between Vegas and Bakersfield at any point. But
you know, seriously, you can ruin your life, like Vince said, when you get into that place where you manipulate people with fear.
Right.
My marriage was really bad, and today's my anniversary. But the first 15 years, Debbie was really afraid of me. And I was very controlling. I had temper tantrums. And I've told people before that have a problem with anger, very often you keep using that anger because it's working for you.
Right.
And she was young and beautiful, and she's still young and beautiful today. But I was so afraid of her leaving me. I was so afraid of her divorcing me because I was a scumbait. I think you still use that word. I was really, really a bad person. And so I had no security. I was very insecure because I knew I was really a bad person, and I felt she was going to find somebody else and leave me. So I controlled her with fear. I manipulated her. Boy, you don't ever leave me. If you do, you know what I'll do. And where were you at today? Why were you there? It was horrible. And, thankfully, God saved me. But we got to talk about that. There might be people listening today that you're manipulating people with this thing called fear. You're making them afraid of you. Even your children. I think some parents, they yell and scream and, I'm going to spank you out behind the back garage back here or the back barn, whatever it used to be. If you don't obey me, man, you better obey me now or I'm going to slap you. I mean, so many people manipulate people with fear.
So talking about fear and how it affects our behaviors, because you probably came from a place where you were fearful, right? You're saying, and then you instilled fear as well.
My dad threatened me all the time.
So
I was very afraid of my dad, and then I used it on my wife.
So what other traits do you think, for the people that are listening to this right now, what other traits do you think people need to watch out for in their own lives to see whether they have fear or not in their lives? I mean, what traits do you think, specific traits, reflect a fearful life?
Because we're talking about there's a good side of fear,
right,
and a bad side.
But we're
of fear.
talking we're talking the
healthy
bad
and unhealthy.
side, the unhealthy, the anxiety, the overreaching type.
I just hope
fear.
some of our listeners and viewers, some of them might, through our podcast, come to the conclusion that I'm using different things in life to instill fear in the ones around me so I can get what I want. And so I'm hopeful that through these podcasts, a lot of people will come to the conclusion that I need to be healed in that area. Yeah. Jim's always been more of a mellow guy. And yet me and Josh, and I think maybe Vince too, we have more of a problem with our temper, and people are kind of afraid of that. So,
you're saying that I'm the balanced one.
You balance us out.
I don't know if that's completely accurate.
Well, everyone gets angry and everyone gets fearful and everyone gets sad. It's when you have an imbalance of those things in your life, when they start to get interfere with your daily living, with your job, with your relationships.
Imbalance is a good word.
Yeah, if you have an imbalance of anything like that, then it becomes a problem.
What does the Bible say? It says, and I think this is a commandment, be angry, yet don't sin.
Right. Yeah.
And so there's times where we need to have righteous indignation. Now that's a whole different subject, righteous indignation
right.
Versus our own personal anger. Some time ago, I wish Tom Touchstone was here. He could, confirm this. But I had some biker guys in the church, and it was during a special event, and I was given an altar call, and they were heckling me, and they were giving me a bad time.
Wow.
And it really bothered me. And so when the event was over, I went out to go to my car, and they were blocking me from my car. They were just trying to give me a bad time. And I really lost it. I got right in their face. I was so angry. I told them, man, what was up and what wasn't. And I think that was righteous indignation going, how dare you come to the house of God, come to the church and do what you did during an altar call. So let's talk about that for a second. What about righteous indignation? Is that something that some of us need more of?
Well, the famous story is when Jesus goes to the temple and he sees that they are making the outer courtyard of the temple into basically a market where they're selling and they're haggling and they're doing all these things. And he saw that as such a disrespect for God that he became very angry and flipped the tables. I mean, he lost his temper. Jesus lost his temper. And you don't see him doing that ever again. I don't know. Is there another story where he lost his
nothing comparable to
temper?
that.
I don't think so. He rebuked a lot, but I don't think he lost. That was the moment where he
and he never sinned.
Right.
Well,
exactly.
to lose your temper, like, did he lose it? Or did he just like
Use it.
do
It was
that?
control. He used it.
It was controlled temper. I think it was a controlled anger.
That's fair.
But think about that whole story. That all comes down to the people having an unhealthy fear of God. They turned the temple into a marketplace because
true.
they had just lost their fear of God. We just talked about this in a staff meeting the other day where it was just like, do you really believe God is who he is? And how dare you turn this into a temple? So that healthy fear on the good side brings us to a great place. But that unhealthy fear, like we said, can manipulate, not just from individuals, but can manipulate and control our everyday lives. I had another list that was interesting that I read. It wasn't the list that you read was common fears. I have a list that says 10 fears that hold people back in life. So the top 10 fears that hold people, but I'll just knock them off and we'll kind of move out of this subject or move out of this version of it. But change, people are afraid to change.
And I love change. Love it.
See, that's a personality.
That's a personality thing because I love change.
Some personalities love change. Other personalities hate it.
But think about the idea of it, because people, when they go into it, they're afraid of change because they're comfortable and they're afraid of what they don't see, right? They're trying to predict the future. They're trying to figure out if it's the right or the wrong move. So people get paralyzed in that idea of change.
So it's really funny. You can bounce off of that idea real quick. My daughter, we're potty training her, and she has diapers on, and so we were trying to switch her from diapers to underwear, and so we got the diaper off of her, and we're trying to put the underwear on, and she's like, "No, I don't want this. I don't want underwear." And me and my wife are laughing. You know?
Right.
It's funny.
It's like underwear is like a coming to age. Like you want the underwear. Trust
it's
us.
so funny because she wants to be big and she wants to try to do the things that her older sister does, and she wants to go to school and preschool. And but I looked at my wife and I just said, "Change is hard."
That's literally fear of change.
It really is. It really is.
So Vince, what
loneliness was it? You're about to talk about this in your next message.
Well, I said I should.
Yeah.
There's a lot of people being plagued by loneliness. And sometimes it's people that you wouldn't think would have that problem. You could be married and be lonely.
100%.
You can have people around you and be lonely.
Well, what else leads? Anxiety can lead to loneliness because you're so paralyzed in fear of just what can happen that you recluse, right?
You're distracted, right? If you're anxious, you're distracted from life itself. And so that's a problem. I mean, if you're anxious all the time, you're actually missing out on the relationships that are around you. You're going to be lonely. You're not going to be receiving the love that you need, right?
100% failure, fear of failure.
Now that might enter my world a little bit.
I mean,
I said something the other day, Jim. You might want to comment on this. I went to bed, and I'm always trying to examine myself. I think that's a good habit to have. And it was something in the context of, God, I just want to be so right with you in my heart and in all my actions. And a thought hit me, and I talked to the Lord about it. And I said, God, I've really kind of, been proud through the years of the fact that, man, the last few years especially, I've given you everything I have. Man, I'll work hard for the kingdom. I'll work hard. And a thought hit me. And I don't say it was coming from God. It was just a thought in my mind that, am I really, really this radical guy that gives everything to God? I mean, here's a man who, he works so hard for the kingdom. Or am I working really hard to make sure I'm successful? There's a big difference.
Right.
And this hit me, and I went to bed saying, God, I don't think this is the case. And I had a good time in my prayer that night. It was 2 nights ago, going, God, I don't think this is the case for this reason. But just the fact that it could have been that, man, I am on fire for God. I am building the kingdom. Or am I trying to build a successful life where everybody will look at me and go, man, that guy's successful. Can you speak to that?
Yeah, that's like checking your motives.
Yes.
Going back to what you're saying. So the fear of failure
Right.
keeps people
Think about that.
Keeps people from stepping out and doing something that maybe they're being pulled
To do.
to do because they may not make it.
Isn't that nuts?
I mean-
It's like almost an oxymoron. you know that you probably have the ability to do this amazing thing, but you're so paralyzed by the fear that you're not willing
to
do it.
in line with the self-fulfilled prophecy, which is you believe something and you make it happen.
Right.
Okay, for example, if you're really, really afraid, I'm going to get cancer, what you're going to do to your physical body might cause cancer
Yeah,
by that fear.
100%.
And what you fear might come upon you.
100%. Yeah.
But you know what? I'm telling you, there's so many things on the table here. I mean, we might have to go 2 weeks for this one.
Fear's a big topic.
It's a big
especially
topic.
in our culture that is ridden with anxiety, because I know fear and anxiety are different, but they are related.
Yes.
That, I have not talked to a 20-something girl who does not claim that she is anxious. Like
Wow.
they are all anxious. And even on the guy side, and I've been talking to a lot of psychologists that I know, and they're saying like, well, statistics are kind of skewed because people are more open about sharing about this, that in my generation, 20, 30 years ago, nobody was really talking about anxiety, but
So-
everybody's talking about it now.
So check this out. I have a theory on this. I'm sorry. Did I cut you off?
No.
Or are you going to continue?
No, go for it.
Okay. I wrote this down this morning, and it goes right along with what you're saying, because anxiety is an epidemic. It's insane.
Right.
I'm just going to read it from my notes because I want to make sure that I get this thought out there. I said, I thought about our current culture and how it may be making us much more fearful and anxious. We pick and choose what we feel like being exposed to every day, right? Which app will I choose? What article will I read? This sets us up to having a distraction whenever we feel like it, enabling us to ignore what we should be facing. So basically, when you wake up in the morning, you have responsibilities, right? We all have responsibilities. And the people that tackle those responsibilities, they're teaching themselves to overcome anxieties and fears by doing what they need to do, by being who they need to be. But we use distractions to keep us from doing that. We never learn how to handle little problems. We never learn how to handle these little intricacies of life that are normal, but we don't like take somebody from the 1950s, a farmer. He wakes up in the morning and he wakes up at the same time every day. It's dark and the rooster crows and he goes out and he milks the cows or whatever they do, whatever the farmers do. I have like a cartoon idea of what farmers do. They milk the cow and they go out and they plow the field. I don't know.
Feed the chickens.
But you know what I mean? Like
That's me.
They would get up and they would do their job. And at the end of the day, they would brush their hands and say, well, I did the best I could. If they're religious, God, you need to do the rest. But now we wake up in the morning. First thing we do is grab our phone. I'm like on CNN. I'm like, oh my gosh, this morning. So check it out. This morning I got on CNN and I'm like, oh, there's a huge hurricane headed for Florida that's going to displace a bunch of people.
Yep.
And the next thing I see is this really cool ad for a TV.
There it is. Yep.
But I
What
want
you
to
feed grows. What you feed grows.
And I want to step back because I was getting to the point where I didn't have that much like anxiety, 30, 40 years ago in the 80s and the 90s. That stuff wasn't there.
Because you're smoking pot, bro.
Well, that was part of it. But the other part,
Way to out him.
Yeah. No problem.
the other part of that is that, and this is fact, 2007, the stats for anxiety go through the roof. 2007, 2008.
Right.
And that is in alignment with the
iPhone.
Wow.
the smartphone, YouTube, Twitter, Facebook, all the social media stuff that was launched in 2007. And I look at it like, okay, so you've got access to media and to events as they happen. And I've said this before, but with the Vegas shooting, when that happened, my daughter knew about it before CNN or Fox News because of Twitter.
Yeah.
And it was instant. And so we're filling our minds with all of these events as they happen. On top of that, you've got this social media comparison that is kind of just existing in the background.
Right.
And it is amplifying the anxiety because there is a less than thing that is
Right.
out there. Like my life doesn't look like that.
FOMO.
And will my life ever look like that? Will I ever be able to go on a vacation? Will I ever be able to find a man or a woman? Will my body ever look like that? And so it amplified that. So I think all of that together has created like the perfect ingredients and recipe.
We're products
for
of
the
our
anxiety.
generation. We're products of our generation. Jim, in my sermon last Sunday, I started out with ABC News, and it said that mental health is so bad in our country right now, there's not enough doctors to treat it. You tell me that's not scary. I have never done a series in my life, I don't think, as this last one, talking about the hidden heart things in the heart, where I have got so much feedback.
Well, and even if there were enough doctors, I feel like there's a lot of people that don't have insurance or don't have the money to do it and to get the help that they need to get. And that's sad to me. I think it'd be great if somehow through the church we were able to work on some sort of thing where we could bring mental health to people that need it the most. And you look around, you see all the homeless people, and it gets bad, and we blame it on the government and all this stuff. But it's mental health. It's mental health.
Let's go back to what you said, though, Josh.
And those two go together. Mental health.
Go
and
back to what you
substances
said, though.
together.
I stopped the habit of getting up every morning and going to newsfeed.
That's good.
Yeah.
And again, I said it on our last podcast, but I'll repeat it. You got to remember, every one of those big media outlets out there, they are striving to find a story today for tomorrow or however far they're ahead. And they've got to take whatever they're talking about and make it as big and as scary as they can.
And when you read
get the headlines,
and when you read that headline, okay, when you read that headline, by the way, Vince and I took a marketing class, and they taught us how they spend 10 times longer writing out the headline and making sure it's perfect than they do the article.
Yeah.
how many times do you read the headline and then the article doesn't even say that?
Yeah, well, this guy went on to say, he's like, statistically, they won't even read past the first paragraph anyway.
Now it's called clickbait, right?
So it's clickbait. Exactly. That's what it is. But it's what happens when we read these articles is we get a dopamine rush because it's exciting or it's interesting. And what happens is by the time you've read 5 of those articles, you've already wasted so much of your energy for the day to handle actual problems.
Right.
And then you end up not handling the problems, and then they stack up, and all of a sudden you're anxious. I mean, college kids are probably having a really hard time with their homework now because they're on the phones all the time. I don't know. Maybe
What Jim was talking about, social media and the power that it has. We have to go back as Christians especially and reevaluate the way our kids are using social media. We're up here in the mountain, and most often when I'm out, I see this family, and they have like 5 kids, probably from 4 years old up to 15, and they're all taking a walk together. They're getting them off social media. They're walking, they're talking, maybe even praying together. See, we've got to, at some point, teach our kids to face their fears.
Yeah.
You can't run from them.
Right.
I've started the practice of leaving my phone at home every once in a while, and it just feels good.
I think it's good. I think after what happened in the election cycle, this last one with the presidential craziness, and I was hearing people on both sides, and it just was so distracting to me. I made a vow. I'm like, I'm done watching like any news station. I don't care. Pick your choice, CNN, Fox News. I turned it off.
It's almost comical when you open up a certain news station and you're like, I know what they're gonna say.
Yeah.
I know what it's gonna be about. I know the story that they're.
It was
trying
so
to tell.
life-giving to do that, though. To
just
your point,
stop.
what you're saying, it's just like,
stop.
yeah. I added time to my day. I'm not as concerned because a lot of these stories have nothing to do with my life, and I will not be able to do anything about these stories. So why bother subjecting myself to it? But I want to go back to touch on the depression, because I did a deep dive with this subject of anxiety about, gosh, it has to be like 10 years ago. Your daughter, your sister, had a panic attack on a trip, and I had never, experienced anything like this. I didn't even know how to process it. And it was a clinical, textbook panic attack. and she was fearing like there was a heart issue
Wow.
and all kinds of medical things. And then to walk her through this whole situation, to be diagnosed with anxiety, and then for me to have no clue what anxiety was, and then to do a deep dive, like understanding it, like scientifically, like with your brain and how your brain produces some of the stuff that makes you,
Serotonin, right?
Yeah, makes you a little bit more prone. One of the discoveries that I thought was so intriguing is that people that have anxiety disorders, that maybe at some point it started with some kind of a fear, an irrational fear,
Right.
that turned into this anxiety disorder, and undealt with anxiety disorder will by default go into depression.
Yeah.
Wow.
I said in my
There are
sermon
two sides of the
series
same coin, yeah.
that stress is very often a precursor to depression. But just for a moment, Josh, you were talking about that year, 2007, I think you said. Is that right?
Jim was, yeah.
Or Jim was.
Yeah.
50 years ago, were people not having anxiety attacks and all this, or did we just not hear about it? I mean, I don't remember 50 years ago.
Well, another thing that affects it,
This happening
that
at
affects
this
your
pace.
mind that people don't think about is diet. It does.
Diet did change through the years too.
The processed foods, the dyes, these different things, the sugar, that all does affect your mind a lot.
One of the things too about going back to the older culture too, and it was unhealthy, and you probably remember this generation, you just didn't talk about stuff. Like you hid stuff behind the scenes. You're like, we're not, you just hid stuff. And so I think this generation for the good or the bad is a little bit healthier for bringing more things to light. I still think, like you said with your last message, the hidden things, I still think we hide a lot of things that we don't want people to see. Yeah. But yeah, I think that we hid a lot of things. What you said about our bodies, and you're going to be able to speak to this, and I hope you dive on this for a second. So when you fear, your body releases a lot of stuff. And like you said, if it's an unhealthy fear, if you read a news article, your body produces cortisol, right? And what does that do to our bodies?
There's a lot of things.
Right.
Lately, I've been dealing with weight around my waist that I believe is caused by cortisol.
Right. But
Stress.
Also, heart on your heart, raised blood pressure, all this different stuff that can cause, well, what happens is you didn't use it. You didn't do anything with it. The idea is that fight or flight, right? So people talk about this chemical thing that happens when you fear. It's fight or flight. You either fight or you run.
Right. There's a third one.
Okay.
You can freeze.
Okay.
That's another one.
But then again, go back to something else I said too. Just a few moments of stress can destroy mitochondria in your body. And that has effect on the immune system. I'm going through something right now, and a lady that I really trust gave me a word from the Lord today. She says, I was praying for you, and I really feel like you cannot have these adrenaline rushes for a long time. In other words, the way I operate, I'm high strung. Sometimes I get these adrenaline rushes that'll last for 10 or 15 minutes. She says, that's not good for you. I get really hyped about stuff. And for example, if something upsets me, I can't get off the topic for 15 minutes. And she said, you're destroying your body that way. And so there's so many reasons why we're sick sometimes.
Right. So this is the negative side. I think we've pretty much covered that, right? And we can go further, but I think we need to move forward to the positive side of fear.
I would say, just to conclude this up and sum it up, I would say, just from this little conversation, negative, we're just conditioned to fear.
Yes. For sure.
Would you? I mean, that's
Most of it's learned, is what you're saying.
And we're conditioned. We wake. The world wants us to fear.
Yeah.
Would you say, was that fair?
And we're all, people might say you're hypocrites because we all have our phones here, but I
have notes. Yeah,
I got notes on here that I want to talk about.
I'm just saying, like, I'm starting to use my phone much differently. I'm starting to be intentional about how I use
But let's
my phone.
talk about the positive side. Yeah. Vince was talking about the fear of failure. Now, very often when I'm counseling people, let's say that they've just had a new diagnosis of cancer and they're real upset, they're crying. I say, okay, let's go to the worst case scenario first. If we can handle the worst case scenario, then we can move backwards from that. You could die from this cancer. Now, as a Christian, let's talk about death. Because here's a verse right here, listen to me, in Hebrews 2:15. And it says, deliver all those who through the fear of death were subject to lifelong slavery. Through what? The fear of death. If we can get to the place as Christians where we really believe we have eternal life, and we can handle that and say, hey, that's the worst case scenario, I can handle that, then we can move from there.
So in another way to say that would be, if you don't fear dying, that you're free.
To a big extent. Okay, let's
Right.
go back to that, Josh. It says that deliver all those through the fear of death were subject to lifelong slavery. I can't move to my dream house in the mountains because there's no hospitals nearby. And I have a heart problem. And so they're being held bondage by that. And we give 20 examples of that. We were talking about failure. I struggled with that for some years, fear of failure. But what has helped me a lot, and I have a certain way of believing, that when I'm spending time with God, he strengthens me.
Right.
And very often when a thing of change comes into my life, some circumstance that's going to call me to change in order to go here or do that, my passion that God has filled me with in a time of prayer and abiding with him is so much stronger than the fear of failure. It's really motivating me, and this strong sense of what God's given me. I mean, again, I'm going to bring everything back around to the spiritual some point in time. But when I spend time with God, let's say, for example, God says, Ron, you're supposed to go to Texas and start a church. And he confirms it 3 times. Now, all of a sudden, I'm getting excited. I can't wait because God's told me to go to Texas. Man, what's going to happen when I go there? All these good things. And my conversation with God and the Holy Spirit witnessing to me that I'm to go to Texas overpowers any fears that change could bring. Does that make sense to anybody?
Yeah, it definitely does. And I think your relationship with God is 100% connected to how much you fear and have anxiety. I do believe this. I think that there's a chemical side when you're having panic attacks and all these things, and that's like a wall between you and God. For me, I was diagnosed with depression and anxiety. Actually, I guess it just kind of goes together. Just threw that one in there.
Cousins.
Yeah. And so I for me, it was a wall. Like I wasn't able to just connect with God like I wanted to because I couldn't get out of my head. Right. But once I started doing little things, started practicing some meditation, praying, getting back into actually praying, but not just like the quick, like God help me prayer, but actually listening, actually breathing, using temperature changes, all these things. Like they seem silly. I was carrying a golf ball around with me for a little bit to be mindful, to like be here, to be now, to not be worried about tomorrow. I have actually I was on medication for years that messed me up for ADD because of lack of focus. I honestly, in the last few months, I have been training my mind to focus and using mindfulness techniques to where I don't think I have a problem with it anymore. Like ADD, I really don't. I'm focused on what I'm focused on. Now, will I still forget my keys? Yeah, I'll still do that stuff or whatever. But like right now, I'm focused on this. I'm focused on you guys. And I have no fears or anxieties or worries because I'm right here.
We're
good.
training ourselves
nice.
to deal with these fears and anxieties. Something really simple has been helping me. For years, I would have these times when I would go to bed stressed out, and I'd get up to go to the bathroom or something, and all these wheels would start turning. And it was horrible. Lately, I found something, and as simple as it sounds, it works. I'll get up to go to the restroom or something, I'll go, disengage, disengage, disengage. And I'll say that to myself or out loud, or disengage, disengage. And it works. It works. And it's been helping me, to not.
You need to share this with your daughter.
Engage.
This is good.
I think I passed down to her.
Well, Jim,
some
just
of my fears.
when she gets in the car, just start playing the podcast, and then she'll get to this point, and then she'll be mad. But just try to turn it off before she gets to the point where we're talking.
And
about
then
it.
you'll have fear in your
That'd
life.
be great. Then yes,
I want to come back to what you were saying about that text in Hebrews and talking about, well, if you can get past the hurdle of like the fear of death, then you can endure this. Because what you're saying is faith over fear.
Ooh.
That faith trumps fear. And something that God showed me when I was doing this whole study about anxiety is when he gets involved, he will turn your what if into a so what.
Yes.
Boom.
I like it.
Well, why do they call hard liquor spirits? They use the word spirit. Have you heard that?
Yeah, right.
For liquor.
Yeah.
Because liquor influences you to do things you would not do normally. My highs in God overcomes a lot of fears. I choose to believe right now, this might change, but I choose to believe when they tell me I'm going to die, I'm going to get thoroughly excited because I really, really believe that I will be in heaven in the next few moments. And I it might be different. Maybe I'm speaking way ahead of time, but I really think when it's my time, and our audience might know, and maybe they don't know, I've asked God to live to 85. As long as I stay strong, keep lifting weights, man, and you know, be the Mick Jagger of the Christian world.
I love that.
The people will hate that.
I have told that story to so many people. My father-in-law is the Mick Jagger of preachers.
Yes, that's awesome. I want to continue to be cool as best as I can. But I've asked God to live to 85, and my wife says, I don't know if you're really thinking about what you're saying, but I do believe that if I get to 85, I think I'm going to have a dying birthday party.
Yeah.
And I'm going to say, you know what? This is the year I'm going home. Maybe I'm just too far from that to be speaking in reality right now.
Well, you truly believe that when you die, you're going to heaven.
I am
Jim,
going.
when you die, you 100%.
I am going.
Josh, you believe.
100%.
So I think I think so. Yeah. If you have that belief, I'm going to double down on what you just said because I like what you just said about faith over fear. One of the scriptures I wrote down, and I actually love this passage. It's from Matthew. It's in a couple different
Gospels.
passages, in Matthew and Gospels, but in Matthew 8:23, it talks about the storm. It says Jesus went on the boat. There was a great storm, and what it says that the disciples freaked out. They feared. They completely went into fear. And he comes to him and he says, "You have little what? Faith.
Yeah.
You have little faith." And I think it comes down to that. I think if you truly believe that you're going to be okay in the end, then you can overcome a lot of that fear and anxiety
So
that you're going
Faith
through.
is a substance.
It's
Right.
a gift, and I believe it comes through relationship. It comes via love. In one of the scriptures I want to share, 1 John 4, God is love. Whoever abides in love abides in God, and God abides in him. By this is love perfected with us, so that we may have confidence, right, for the day of judgment. Because as he is, so also are we in this world. There is no love and fear. That's not what it says.
Perfect love casts out fear.
That's not what it says, but that's true too.
Right.
It says there is no fear in love, but perfect love casts out fear. And to me, like I'm not saying that you can pray everything away necessarily, but you can definitely get into a point where you are so in tune with God, where you're listening, where you're hearing, where you're obeying, where you're worshiping, praising, to where everything subsides.
Jim's going to be able to speak to this, I think, because you're married to my daughter. But I had someone come to me the other day, and now this is going to be, kind of, what's the word I want to use? A little bit of
PG-13?
Controversial.
Okay.
Because of people's different theologies. But she said, I believe my daughter, whoever, is going to die because God's been preparing me the last year for it. So I think I'm prepared that she's probably going to die or whatever. And I said, so you think God's preparing your heart for her death? Yeah, I do. I think God's preparing your heart to pray for her so she doesn't die. There's a big difference between the two.
Big difference.
Now we can get into the theological aspect of this, but I think very often God might give you a perspective of something that maybe is going to happen in the future. Instead of letting yourself be consumed with fear over it, I think you might be called to pray it away. Let me give you an example. Before Jim married our daughter, Debbie and I were driving to Porterville, and I looked at Debbie and I said, Debbie, I feel like the Holy Spirit is speaking in my heart and telling me that when I mention to you what I'm going to say to you right now, you've already been thinking this. And I said, I feel like I've been shown that Jim is in danger of having a car accident and dying. You were traveling that time a whole lot. And she started crying, just weeping. She said, God's been telling me that he's in danger of traveling that road.
Wow.
And I've been having dreams that Jim's dead. He's dead. He's dead. And we're having his funeral and whatever. And I said, but God gave us that to pray this away. And we started praying, man, for the next few weeks. Totally went away. The fear went away. Everything went away. We covered it in prayer. Now, you guys speak to that. Again, I don't have time theologically to unwrap this. God is sovereign and God can't change his mind. That might be the next broadcast. But do you think God ever gives you perspectives of something that that he sees down the road that's probably going to happen, so you can start praying
Premonitions.
over it and pray it away.
So
Is that
ultimately what we're saying is get close to God, right? Get close to God, listen, pray, and obey, right? And pray the right things. But let's do this. Let's go through some scenarios.
okay? Josh is going to avoid this question right here, but I want Jim to answer it first. I want him to speak into this because he's married to my daughter, and I think sometimes those kind of thoughts have played a big role in her life. and
because
maybe mine.
they can send you down a rabbit hole. You know, when you get this thought in your mind, like, you know, so-and-so is going to die. And then you're like, what if they die? And then I'm going to be sad and oh my goodness. And what can I do to prevent that? And so the mental health of that thought bubble can just drive you down into a dark place. But you guys, being rich in faith, said, we're going to pray over it because we believe that God gave us this premonition so that we can do something about it. And I will say, I look back because that was when I was in college and I was driving back and forth from Cal Poly. I had a sleeping disorder to where I would get really tired when I was driving. And I will tell you, there are parts of that drive sometimes that I would not remember.
That's scary.
That, like, was I asleep? You know, and I know I'm not the only one that you've driven like a long distance and you're like, I don't remember driving the last 10 minutes. So maybe an angel, because of your prayers, carried me through a potential car accident because I'm still alive, you know?
And then that fear left us, if you can even call it fear. Maybe it was something God was saying to us and we interpret it in a fearful way. I believe in this with all my heart.
So would you call it fear, concern, or
I think it was concern,
premonition?
but I think that concern in some people's lives could turn into fear.
Yeah. So there was a premonition, and you could choose at that point by faith to give it to God or live in fear and live in this dark space.
God wouldn't give you a premonition if indeed he's doing that.
It's what you do with the
For
fear.
you to be afraid.
Yeah.
He wouldn't say, here, I want to torture you for a year.
Right.
Your loved one's going to die, so I'm preparing your heart. So I'm going to torture you for a whole year. If he gives you a premonition, it's, I believe, to pray whatever it is away or pray it down a different road or however you want to explain it. But I know you want to go a different direction. So we've got to come back with this broadcast. We haven't even touched death yet, the fear of death.
Oh, man. That's a whole podcast in itself. I think we're going to go into that, right?
We have to go into it,
we have
I
to go
think.
into it.
Well, I was just thinking about people who are listening to this, and I think it's a very interesting discussion, but it's also people need practical help, right?
Yes.
At the end of the day, that's what I'm always looking for is how do I fix this problem right now that I have? And so real quick, let's think of a couple scenarios that people might have in their life right now. Let's say the first one is fear that their significant other is going to leave them. What advice would you give them?
First of all, if I was afraid my wife was going to leave me, Hannah, I start looking at myself and asking myself, like in healthy fear, like not letting the fear control me, but actually trying to take control of it and saying, am I being a good husband?
Earlier, when you were talking about Dad, you were talking about Mom. You were fearful she would leave you.
Yes.
But that was just out of fear. It wasn't her. It was just out of fear, right?
It was out of fear because I was being such a bad person.
Okay.
Because
And I
of
really
your
knew
own
she could do better.
insecurity.
I knew she could do
Your own
better.
So maybe
Right.
the practical help or the practical advice for this person would be look inside of you. What is causing this? You know, is it based on reality? In my therapy, they've taught me to check the facts. You know,
Right.
What are the facts? What's real and what is made
I would
up
say
in your head?
if
right?
I felt that, I would go to prayer and say, God, show me the areas of my life maybe that aren't conducive to being a good husband.
Right.
And then I would try to change those ways. I would try to love her as much as I could, but the backdrop would be I'm going to do all I can do, but doggone, if she leaves me, there's life after this.
Well, I don't know
would
if-
have to have that backdrop.
I don't know if Jim has heard my locus of control thing with the external versus internal. It comes from a book by Charles Duhigg, Power of Habit. Anyway, the idea is that some people believe that they can control anything and everything in their life, and they have more of an external locus of control. They believe they can handle anything that comes. They can change things, right? And then other people believe life happens to them. They have a very internal locus of control. So they're just like, whatever happens, happens, man. You know, they're like the hippie or whatever. And the unhealthy people are the people that don't know the difference between what they can control and what they can't. And so I think that in a situation like that, when it comes to a relationship, there's a huge aspect that you cannot really control. And that's the other person's feelings, their thoughts, their mind, their reaction.
They have free will.
They have free will. We believe in that. Some people don't. But we believe that they have that choice, right? And so you can do all the right things and still lose them. And then at that point, you don't want to have that attitude of, well, whatever happens, happens.
You do the best you can
I'm
do.
gonna deal with it. But there's also things that we can't control. Am I treating this person badly? Am I fighting them? Am I dealing with my own anxieties and issues, and am I pushing them away? Right. And so maybe you need marriage counseling, maybe you need therapy, maybe you need to talk to a pastor, maybe you need to talk to a friend. I don't know, but it depends on what level you're at, right, in your relationship. So that's one practical help.
And I think going back to that, letting somebody else in
It's good.
to be able to process this with,
Right.
to kind of see if this is rational or irrational.
Yeah.
To be able to let somebody else in. And that could be, I call them battle buddies that I get concerned, Ron, you probably are the same way. It's like when I'm the only friend of somebody that has been attending church, like I'm the only person they know and connect with because they've heard me speaking.
Oh, man.
I'm like, this isn't good. You need to find some people. That's why I'm a huge advocate of like life groups or small groups.
I was in a group therapy session, and they went around and asked everyone. They said, "Who's your core? You know, the people that you your support system." They called it, and so many people didn't have anybody.
Yeah. So,
And I thought that's
where
huge.
people get stuck in their head.
Right.
And they don't have anybody to process this
And
with.
you want the right people too.
Oh, 100%.
You don't want
Yeah.
just anyone. You know, whoever's easy to be friends.
You're not
with.
going to find a perfect person, but you want to find somebody that is running the same direction as you are with God.
and who will tell you the truth.
Yeah, I just can't live with fear. And again, I know that was kind of a quick response, but again, whatever find myself being afraid of, I will take everything back to a spiritual platform.
What if somebody's afraid of, really afraid of getting a disease and dying, or really afraid of health in general?
And again, maybe I'm oversimplistic, but again, go talk to someone, get it out. We have to get these stressful things out. And hopefully, if you have heaven as your backdrop and you go, I'm on this earth, I'm going to start eating the best I can. I'm going to start exercising the best I can. And if it doesn't work, it doesn't work. I mean, again, I know there's a process to go through, and I know everyone we're talking to might not have the spiritual backgrounds that we have. Eventually, I will bring everything back around to God. You know me. Everything will come back around to God. Everything will come back around to Scripture.
I think sometimes when I have all these thoughts in my head, ruminating, all these different things going on, if I sit down and write it out in a journal,
It helps a lot.
It's like I'm able to really understand what I'm thinking and what I'm not thinking, and what is bothering me and what's real and what's not. And so I'll write my thoughts down, and I'll realize, oh wait, I'm not sick.
Yeah.
I'm worried about being sick.
Right.
And because of that worry, I'm actually missing out on life right now.
100%.
And that's actually what I'm afraid of missing out on later by being sick.
Right.
And then you're like, oh my gosh.
Well, you already gave us a solution. When you find yourself with these intriguing fears or these devastating fears, the first step, and we saw it with Elijah, you have to go find somebody you can trust and talk it out with them. Don't leave it inside because it'll grow. Mold grows in dark places. You got to get it out, talk it out, and get some counsel.
So I have one more important, and this is specifically for you two. What do you do if you have a presentation coming up and you are deathly afraid to speak in front of people? How'd you guys overcome that fear? Or did you ever have that fear?
I dropped out of speech class. At college, I dropped out.
Fight or flight.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or freeze.
I had a
I
panic.
just learned that.
You know,
freeze.
I had a panic attack during a sermon a couple of times.
I was
You
there.
did?
I had a panic attack on Christmas
Christmas.
Eve service
Which one?
in Ventura. And my father-in-law was there.
I saw it.
And I froze and I stopped. And I was just like, I'm going to pray right now. I don't know what else to do. I'm like, I don't know if I even really am comfortable sharing the Christmas story right now. It was a whole thing.
Let me ask you a question, though.
It's crazy.
Did you come in fully 100% prepared?
I don't know. I'm probably not. I mean, the family was there that day. If you know me, the way I prepare, I always put headphones on. I really get pumped up and get focused. But
I have notes I can go back to if I have one of those, what do we call them, brain farts or whatever? I don't know what you call them.
yeah,
I just had one. It happens. I think it's called getting old.
Is that what it is?
But yours was completely.
Mine was out of fear.
Yours was out of fear. I saw it firsthand. I mean, you were taking deep breaths and you controlled. But I love what you said. You went back and you did pray. That was the one thing that you did.
I did. And then I also, and that calmed me down a lot. But I also went back and learned about what that is, and I learned how to handle it. And so basically your thoughts are on a conveyor belt, right? They're coming and they're leaving. They're coming and they're leaving.
But I have notes, so if that happens to me, I'll just go back and read the notes.
Well, you're a
notes.
special case because you have a very headstrong mind. Like you're very headstrong. So you're able to say, well, it's funny. Vince and I, we joke around about you sometimes because we hear you in the speaker when we're doing videos and you're like, come on, Ron, you talk to yourself and you say, get it right. And so you actually are talking to yourself and telling yourself what to focus on. I think most people don't have that discipline. I think people need to learn that. So back to the whole, I have a presentation coming up next week. Jim, what do you think? What's your best advice?
I saved the cassette from the first time you allowed the college group to go up to the stage. I think it was a Wednesday night. And like 4 of us shared. It was the first time I've ever been up on a stage like that. I saved the cassette.
It wasn't an 8-track?
It wasn't 8-track, bro. Come on, man.
Okay, just making sure.
I was born in the 70s. Okay. I will say I saved that because that is such a learning experience. And the more you do something, the more comfortable you get in that space to where I don't even think about it anymore. I've had so many experiences where maybe I didn't feel fully prepared, but then afterwards I said things I didn't prepare to say, but I know those things became the strongest points of the whole talk to where I have gained so much confidence in God when I'm up there that I still prepare.
Yeah.
I still have notes and my notes look totally different than your dad's.
Well, I think that, one of the best advice that I've gotten, and I know you guys both do this, is you internalize your message, right? You get it from the head to the heart. And when you do that, you don't even have to have, notes are great, but you don't, that's
it's
like
authentic.
Your backup,
it's
right?
coming. Yeah. It's coming
like here,
from
and if you can share your entire message in one sentence, right? Then you have it, you know it. This is what I want to tell everyone.
I don't go by my notes very often, but they're there in front of me.
I don't know how you could go by your notes. Your notes are crazy. Like he writes in the margins, up and down, lateral, like it's crazy.
We'll go back to the back room, like, hey, Pastor, we have this verse, and he'll go back and it's just like around the whole page, and you're like,
he keeps telling me one day he's going to hand me his notebooks, and I'm like, for firewood? What? What am I going to use this for? Because I'm not going to be able to read them at all. I'm going to have Tara help me.
But I have them up there for a reason.
Yeah, Tara could translate them for you.
Well, Dad, I'm going to have the videos.
Yeah. Well, I have them up there for a reason. If someone comes in and does something really crazy, I lose my attention span at that moment. I just go back to my notes.
Right.
So they're almost like a safety net for me.
So another form of advice, because I think I've had probably more fear than anybody of speaking, is people don't know what you're thinking. That's huge. Because I will have all these thoughts of like, you're not doing it right, or you said that wrong. And I'm like, they're not thinking that. It's just me, and they don't know what you don't tell them. So I used to speak, and I would speak my insecurities. Oh gosh, I messed that one up. Sorry guys. And they just don't know. They don't know that.
You don't want to do that.
Yeah.
I like what you said, and we can start to tie it up here. You said you use your notes as a safety. But how much more confidence does that give you going into a situation?
A lot more.
So would you say a lot of people's fears, or would in Jim too, is just out of just preparation for life in general? Huntington and I went backpacking. We've been planning this backpacking trip. I said, when you become a freshman, I'm going to take you up on this big backpacking trip, 5 days. It's going to be amazing. And he was a little nervous, but I'm like, it's going to be great. We're going to pack the water. We're going to do everything right. And so we prepared. I told him what to expect, what not to expect, what snakes to look for, what snakes not, like aren't poisonous. We went to bears, what to do if they approach you. And it was a great trip. We could have let all the fear paralyze us, but we knew we were prepared. We went in prepared. We had our water packs. We had our food. We had as much knowledge as we had as a land as possible.
Informed. Yes.
We were completely informed. Instead of saying, now we're not going to go because it's too dangerous, we went on the trip, climbed, it was 14,000 feet over Kearsarge Pass. Moment for me and him that we'll never forget. I have the photo. It's just this moment. And my dad got to go to, which is crazy. 3 generations of Sierra boys on top of a mountain. If I would have let the fear paralyze me, if I wouldn't have been prepared, if I would, it would have never happened for you.
Yeah, it's huge. Well, if you can overcome something like that, then you can probably overcome a lot of things, I think. But I think of an oil field worker. He's not nervous when he's doing his job. He's just doing his job. And speaking is just the same if you are doing this for your job, whether it's a presentation or whether you're speaking in front of people, but or leading a small group or something like that. But just have courage today. I think one of the best things that we can do as Christians is encourage somebody else. So if you're going through something, I've noticed that if I encourage somebody else with something I'm going through, a lot of times they're going through the same thing. It's weird, It's like
we pour courage into other people when we encourage them.
Yeah, and it really it strengthens us. And so,
faith trumps fear. I'm
does.
telling you now.
Proverbs 11:25, he who refreshes others will himself be refreshed. So it's the biblical boomerang.
Yeah, I can be afraid.
Yeah,
and I can go spend an hour with God and get my Bible and go out to, like, here at the mountain park up here. And I'm totally different when I come back than when I went. The same fears they might still be there, but they're not near.
They don't have
powerful.
the impact. Yeah.
Can I give a final thought?
Yeah.
I want to give a final thought about fear and anxiety, because in all of my experience and all of the biblical references that we have, and even the scientific data that is coming back, and that is probably the biggest thing you can do to help conquer any irrational fear or any kind of anxiety disorder that you may have, is keep a gratitude journal. I am convinced that gratitude is the biggest thing that you could begin in your life to come against that fear and anxiety of be grateful for the things that you have and the things that are right.
Gratitude changes your attitude.
Yes.
Yeah.
And you can get so stuck in this mode of fear and get so locked into it that you forget the goodness of God, because really that's what it comes down to. And that's what helps elevate fear and produce more, or elevate faith and produce more faith in your life.
You know what's going to happen?
To be grateful.
You know what's going to happen? We're going to end this podcast, and I'm going to go out, and something's going to scare the daylights out of me. And a spirit of fear is going to try to set in. But anyway, we need to take this in some way. The question is, do we come back with this next week, or are we through with it?
Possibly. Every week is different, and we're just kind of praying
We'll know
about
next
it.
week, huh?
And we'll see. But going off of this thought, the gratitude thought, it also causes you to take a personal inventory of what you do have.
Yes.
Right?
Yep.
And sometimes we have a lot more tools. We have a lot more relationships. We have a lot more. God has given us everything we need to succeed, to do well. And so sometimes we just forget that we have that person, or we have that tool, or we have the Bible.
Lean into what we have, what we don't, right? And not what we have.
So that's a good word, Jim. That's great. Well,
We need to go out.
all right, guys. Love you guys. Have a great week, and fear not, because God is with you, right?
Most repeated promise in the Bible.
Bless you guys. Love you.
Sunshine. You got your daddy's ring.